Hey guys, I had the chance to take the RF 24mm f1.8 out in the wild, photographing a 21st birthday party in a bar, or in the photography vernacular, a low-light indoor event with mixed artificial and LED lighting. Well, I parked up my usual go-to, the RF 35mm, which this video is somewhat in comparison to based on my experience, and instead I took the 24mm, as I knew the venue in advance and I knew the extra width would help when I was close to the subjects in the group candid and posed shots. So I shot the RF 24mm on the EOS R with the Godox V1C speed light. Due to mixed lighting, I didn't use any modifiers, and I made sure that my image quality was set to RAW. I also shot in manual mode, keeping ISO between 1000 and 1600 and ensuring to use the lock button on shooting runs, and also made sure that flicker detection was set to on. I also shot with the Canon EOS R7 with the RF 85mm f2. Now that allows me to get a lot closer for the punched in or portrait shots. So as you can see, it was extra low light, not much in the way of illumination here. In the past I've also used an Aperture AL f7 LED panel to illuminate the subjects, leaving the speed light to illuminate the scene. However, recently I've opted against it, mainly due to it being cumbersome, as well as adding weight and complexity to the photography scenario. But for this event, it probably would have come in handy. Okay, so the things I enjoyed about shooting with the RF 24mm over the 35mm, where the extra width allowed me to get closer in those group posed or candid shots, and especially in situations where other guests or fixtures in the venue wouldn't allow me to get back any further. The extra width also allowed me a lot more compositional flexibility in the edit, you know, in terms of being able to crop. But remember, cropping in event photography is not just about your composition around the subjects, which of course the essence of that should be in the photo already. It's more about removing unwanted elements from the scene. You know, for instance, someone's face or nose coming into the shot from the right of frame, you know, in the foreground, just as you're taking the shot, or an errant arm flying in from the dance floor, you know, allows you to just crop inside of those. Okay, so the things I found basically the same or marginally better. The macro function was useful, but I actually didn't find it as useful as the macro function in the 35mm. There's just something about that focal length that works in that situation, and plus it seems more vibrant, the 35mm, in those situations. I noticed no meaningful difference in the focus aptitude of either of the lenses. They both function as well as each other. Maybe the macro function on the 24mm is a little bit easier to get into and also get out of, as it just happens in one continuous motion both ways, very quickly as well. Another thing I noticed with the 24mm was there's just way less of the stunners that come out from the 35mm. You know, when everything like focus and color and clarity and the exposure, everything just pops. Okay, so the things I found worse or disliked shooting the 24mm over the 35mm in this situation. I found the 24mm was useful but also detrimental. It was so great to be able to get closer to the subjects, but what actually happens is it caused more distortion and unusual warping of the subjects within that photo. So they either had to be right on the same focal plane, or I had to step back in order to reduce that effect. And also it meant I had to be more considerate about how I oriented my sensor in relation to the orientation of the subjects to avoid having irregular extremities to the edges of the frames, like massive heads or huge arms. And although I had the extra width, which was what I was craving, it actually caused me a lot more time in the edit having to crop, basically from the 24mm frame down to what would represent a 35mm frame. Because I was able to shoot wider, closer, it meant that in the shots that I had the distance where a 35 would have been great, I was actually capturing more than I needed to the edges, which required me more cropping. It probably added about a quarter of the time to my edit flow, if not longer. Okay, so the good news is that on Lightroom and Photoshop, there is a lens profile for the RF 24mm f1.8, and it does a pretty good job. If you think back to the worst RF lens that was ever made, the 16mm, I mean, that thing had unbelievable distortion and vignetting as well. And there was no profile for the longest time, but there is a profile for the 24mm. And as you can see here, that the 24mm also does what the 16mm does. That is, it shoots a wider frame and then it crops in, and it also has a fairly decent vignette. And you have to deal with these by way of in-camera corrections, or you use the Lightroom or Photoshop profile. I mean, as you can see in these examples here, how it actually works. And look at the vignette on some of these and the distortion. I mean, some of them actually look cool. This one's not necessarily so bad. Yeah, in some of these I think it looks better without the lens profile applied, but while on that point I will just say the distortion in the vignette is nowhere near as pronounced as on the 16mm, so it's not quite as much of a problem. I mean, the 16mm, it's outrageous the way that does it. It's a terrible lens. Okay, so based on my experience, as I mentioned, between the RF 24mm and the 35mm, here are some of my conclusions. Is it wider than the 35mm? Yes. Is it better being wider? Yes and no. That's really venue and situation dependent. Is it sharp? Yes. Is it sharper than the 35mm? No. Is it vibrant? Yes-ish. Is it more vibrant than the 35mm? No. Does it replace the 16mm f2.8 in my camera kit? Absolutely 100%. The great news about this 24mm is it bridges the gap to the 35 and it gives us another option other than to use the 16mm, which really is not a good idea for photography. Does it replace the 35mm in my bag? No. Like I said, the 35mm is more natural in its representation of human subjects. So in this case, where I thought the 24mm might replace it altogether, it's now just going to be an extra piece I have to carry in the overall kit. Funny that, eh? I mean, at the end of the day, they're different tools for different jobs. I mean, you can get by with one over the other. Usually one of them will be better than the other in that spot. Hey, I'll leave that there. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. We'll catch you next time. Bye.